to another episode of the Modern Manifestation Podcast. I'm your host, Bree Brown, a lettuce-hating, wine-loving, curses like a sailor, recovering perfectionist. Having thrived in a male-dominated, commission-based industry, I'm passionate about helping women boldly pursue their life goals. In this space, we build confidence with our mindset, manifestation, and spirituality. I believe that your life manifests as a result of who you are, not what you do, and that your personality creates your personal reality. Join this growing community to increase your net worth by increasing your self-worth. Now let's jump into today's topic. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Modern Manifestation after a very, very long summer break for myself. Thank y'all so much for your patience as I work to produce new content, a new intro, new branding. I hope you're enjoying all of the new things, which really indicate a new movement and a new phase of this podcast. I know I said it was going to be over the summer. Frankly, it's still 80 degrees in Texas, so it's still summer here. But thank you guys so much for your patience. That break was everything I needed to really get a new boost, to really get new ideas and a fresh energy for this podcast. And I have so many great ideas. I can't wait to bring them all to you. But before we get into that, just a couple updates other than the new intro, the new artwork, etc., the branding. There's also some actual updates to the podcast itself and how it's going to be structured moving forward. One of them, which you will probably notice in this episode, is that I'm going to be showing up onto the podcast more without scripts. That is something that terrifies me, if I'm being very honest, because I have scripted almost every podcast to date other than the interviews. So that is something that's a little scary, and I appreciate your patience as I lean into that and experiment with it. It could be a total failure. I could finish up all the episodes and said, you know what, this isn't working out. We're going back to the scripts. So I appreciate any sort of love and leniency you are willing to give me as we try this new thing out. Let's see how it works. I feel like that'll allow me to be more spontaneous and hopefully allow me to bring some things that just come to my mind that maybe you guys need to hear in that specific moment, as opposed to sticking to a script where I am reading and it doesn't allow much room for flexibility. I also think that's going to help reduce my constriction when it comes to showing up for you in this podcast. And I'm going to get into that a little bit later in this episode because I really want to talk about that constriction piece. So in addition to not having scripted episodes, the other change that's going to be a little bit more drastic is the scheduling. I know I was initially every Monday and then I was every other Monday. Here's what I have decided, y'all. I am like a straight up Virgo in most of my life. I am orderly. I have schedules. I love the shit out of my organization. But the reality is that I love the podcast and it is my passion project. When something is a hobby for me, I cannot have it scheduled. It has to be something where I'm in the mood, the energy is there, and I just show up when I feel like I am best going to be, I'm going to be best available to you, or my energy is going to be where you need it to be. And what I noticed previously, and I think this is why I was getting burnt out with the podcast, is that schedule wasn't working for me, or really any schedule with the podcast wasn't working for me. So I'm going to test these waters. I'm going to see how it feels to just show up, to just pop up in your little downloads randomly. That might give some of you anxiety. I'm so sorry. Actually, I'm not going to say I'm sorry because this is totally self-serving and something I need to do. But I empathize with you because I have had those podcasts where I listen to and I'm like, when is the next episode going to drop? And there's no consistency there. But this is what I need to do to show up for you at my best. So I appreciate any leniency you're willing to give me there. That is not to say that I'm going to disappear for 6 months or anything like that. I won't do that without notice to you, first of all. And I still hope and aim to get at least 2 episodes a month out. That way you're still getting the bi-weekly, more or less schedule. It just might not always be on Monday mornings. And that is something that's just going to really help me release my energy so I feel like I'm more in flow and less subscribed to this schedule. The schedule was just stressing me out. And then the third change I am going to address, and that is the topic flexibility. I know I touched on this in my last episode regarding the podcast update, so it's not going to come as a surprise to most of you, but I am going to embrace and lean into this spirituality. So what does that look like? That means that over time, I'm going to get a little bit more and more and more in depth with where I'm at, what I've experienced, and what I'm hoping to bring to you if you are dipping your toe into the spirituality world. So one of the things that I noticed, and this is also why I think I was getting burnt out with the podcast, is that the topics that I was focusing on and the topics I was bringing to you, while I think they are helpful, they are also topics that I was really passionate about 6 months ago, a year ago, 18 months ago, etc. So when I was showing up to the mic, I was talking about topics that I thought were interesting and had really helped me at some point, but it had been so long ago that I'd had that disconnect and that passion was no longer there. And I don't think that's fair to you guys. I want you to come along this journey with me. And I know I initially started out saying I wasn't going to dip into spirituality. Shit changes, you know? It's my podcast. I grow. The podcast has to grow too. So this is where we're at. And so I want to bring new topics to the show. Things like plant medicine, tarot readings, using the pendulum, leaning into your intuition, synchronicities, angel numbers, all of these things that are a big part of my day-to-day life that I feel like I've hidden from you guys in a lot of ways. And I know I've touched on some of these things previously, but I kind of feel like I would let things slip here and there and be a little quiet about it. And now I'm just like ready to embrace the spiritual energy, just show up in the full force, divine fucking energy that I feel like I have embraced lately. And I think you deserve that from me. I think you deserve to have all aspects of me on this show, and that is how I'm going to feel so much more connected, so much more aligned, and honestly, I just think that that's going to be the best thing for you all, is to get the full, authentic me in the present moment, not the person I was 6 months ago. You deserve me today, presently. And this ties in so much into the spiritual lessons I've been getting lately about being present, not living in the past or the future, and being mindful about the present. I keep getting this message from Spirit all day fucking long. And as I was thinking about these various aspects of my life, I was like, oh my God, the podcast is one of those things where I am focused on the past, the things I needed in the past. So we're bringing all that shit to the present timeline. We're here. It's going to be great. I'm excited about it. And if it's not your vibe, that's totally cool. I love you anyway. And maybe you'll check back in later, or you just check back when there's a topic that resonates with you again. And that's cool too. Totally fine, babe. Do what you need to do to honor where you're at. So I'm so excited to reduce that disconnect. I'm so excited about getting rid of some of the logic. I had a meditation that I sat down and did about a month ago, and I was asking, what do I need to release? What is something I need to let go of? Because I felt this energy just heavy on my shoulders. I just felt this energy around me where I was like, there's just something that's just doesn't feel good. I don't know what this is. Like, what is it that I need to let go of? And the word that came to my mind was logic. That was it, just logic. And for those of you that have never had a download, I'm actually going to talk about that in an upcoming episode, so don't worry. So this download for me came in just as logic, just concise, direct. And as I sat with that, I was like, wow, that is something that has ruled my life, pretty much my entire life. As a Virgo, I have been very much a perfectionist. I have leaned into logic. I have leaned into problem solving. I have always resonated with that kind of information. And what I realized in that meditation when I was asking, what do I need to let go of that's holding me back right now? The answer was loud and clear: logic. You are looking for logic in the illogical. And that's not to say that spirituality is illogical. Okay, actually, yes, that is what I'm saying. I'm saying that at a certain point, there is logic in spirituality, but at a certain point, you have to be willing to part with it. And for me, that scared the shit out of me for a long time because I love my logic. I wanted to wrap myself up in it like a warm, fuzzy blanket and just live in the logic. But if you've heard my past episodes, you've probably already realized that I have had to ebb and flow with that a little bit. I've had to let that go. I have had to stop living in the black and the white world, that perfectionistic tendency, right? Of thinking this is logical and this is illogical. Spirituality kind of morphs it can be both. It can be and or, it can be separate, it can be the same. It doesn't want to live by the same constraints that govern our physical dimension, that govern our physical reality. So that is going to be something where that has shown up, logic has shown up a lot in my podcast to date, because that is where I was showing up. It is now something that I am embracing as something I need to let go. So I guess debracing, or whatever the opposite of embracing would be. And that will leave more space for me to talk about things like synchronization and all of those other topics that I mentioned earlier that I think you might really benefit from hearing. So those are the updates that I have for you in this podcast. I hope you can feel the change in my energy. I think this is going to be great. I already feel great about it. What would mean a lot to me is if you think this is going in the direction that you want to, that's in alignment with you, share this episode with your friends, your family members, share it on Instagram, on Facebook, whatever. I would just love it if you would help me build upon the expansion of this podcast. This podcast is currently at, I think, 35,000-ish, and I would just fucking love it if by the end of 2023, we are at 100,000. That's a little ambitious, I'm not going to lie. But that is my goal, and I'm sharing that with you because if I don't hit it, that's fine, tough shit for me. But I think it's important we talk about these things, right? Like, I think it's important that you follow along the journey with me. We check back in with each other, and you can see what it's like in real time to go after a goal, while leaning into and utilizing all the things I talk about when it comes to manifestation and how that's playing a part of this goal setting. And it's okay if I don't hit the goal, because I think there's lessons to be learned in that, as well as lessons to be learned when you actually do hit the goal. And both are, I think, are critically important to witness. I don't want to speak for you, but I think that could be really cool for us. So those are the updates that I have for you. I think that's really going to help with this feeling of constriction that I have when it comes to the podcast. And I don't have time in today's episode, but I promise one of the next episodes I do is going to be about that constriction, what I mean, how that shows up for people in their day-to-day lives, and how you can start to play with that concept to let it go and really just open up more fresh energy for you. I was going to talk about it today, but I think that just needs to be its own separate episode. Thank you so much for hanging out with me today. I'm so excited to be back. I hope you're excited to be back as well. Have a fantastic rest of your week, and I will catch y'all whenever the fuck I feel like showing back up to the mic. I'll work on this new outro, I promise. Love y'all. I hope y'all enjoyed today's episode. If you want to check out the show notes, head over to www.themodernmanifestation.com/blog. If you're loving this podcast, please drop me a review, share this episode with a loved one, and follow me on Instagram @modernmanifestation. I love y'all so much, and thanks for listening.